Hello ladies and gentlemen and YouTube fans. I wanted to give you all a new video showing you all the connections of what took place inside of Japan. Also the motives, the threats that all transpired long before the actual attacks that took place inside of Japan. I'm going to show you how that Japan was attacked. But what I did, I'm going to put all of the information all in one video. This way that you all can understand the plot and it's not broken up in several different videos. But before I do that, I'm going to show you how that the plot began with creating a cyber weapon that had the ability of causing mass destruction. Okay, so I want you all to please pay very close attention to this video and listen very deeply to all that I'm trying to share with you all, and then you can see all of the dots that I've connected to finding out the actual truth of what happened in Japan and who was involved in it. Remember, I felt that they were attacked from day one, and I went on that hunch, and this is what I came up with. And it's all on mainstream media by their own admittance. You have to listen very carefully to this whole idea. First of all, it goes with the plot of creating the Stuxnet virus, as you can all see here on your screen at the moment. They were creating a cyber weapon called the Stuxnet virus, and they were using Iranian nuclear plants as a place to test this virus and to see if it has the ability of doing it to other nuclear plants around the world. And they go on in here and they admit that they tested it on a nuclear power plant inside of Iran in the Natanz and Bushehr nuclear sites. The Stuxnet virus was designed to target and attack German machines called Siemens and any machines that have Windows software into their systems. And they go into admitting and bragging here on the Haaretz newspaper. Then they go here on the New York Times. They go on and bragging about how that they tested the worm and that was called crucial in Iranian nuclear delay. They also, right here, as you can see in this highlight, this is where the Stuxnet virus was created out of. And it states here, the Dimona complex in the Negev desert is famous as the heavily guarded heart of the Israelis' never acknowledged nuclear arms program. And you can see that they were even bragging about it. They go into details of how that the Stuxnet virus affects and attacks the nuclear security sensors and systems inside of the plant. You can all go there and you can read it all in detail. So I'm not going to tell you. I'll let you just do all the reading about how it attacks nuclear power plants. Also, here it goes on to bragging about Israel. Video shows Stuxnet as one of its successes. In other words, they were bragging about it, boasting about it, and it's even on the Telegraph newspaper that they succeeded in targeting a nuclear power plant and causing it to shut down. They go on again and continuously. Israeli security chief celebrates the Stuxnet virus again on the Telegraph for the attacks on the Iranian nuclear power plant. On the BBC News, they go on to admit again that United States and Israel were behind the Stuxnet claims, which you're going to find out how Israel played a role in destroying the Fukushima nuclear power plant later on as we get into this video. And here you see that they even admitted on the BBC News that Israel and the United States were the ones who created the Stuxnet virus that was designed to target and sabotage the Iranian nuclear power program. And then after they go on to admit it and brag about it, then they try to create what you call a fall guy. In other words, a group of people inside of Iranian stating that they're and claiming that this group of people are setting out to do revenges for the attacks of the Stuxnet virus. It goes on and gives the detail that a 21-year-old guy doesn't even give his name, doesn't give his location, doesn't give any kind of information other than he's 21 years old. Now, you would think if they have his age, they would have his name, correct? But apparently they don't know his name, but they know that he belongs to a Commando group. A Commando group is a new, made-up terrorist group that the Israeli government have created to use as a fall guy for any more attacks on nuclear plants that are planned by the Israeli and the United States. They would blame it on the Iranian hacker, the so-called phantom that just come out of their own figurative of their mind. And but yet at the same time they're trying to make it look like there's an Iranian plot to attack more nuclear facilities for the revenge on the Stuxnet attack that was done to one of their nuclear power plants. This is a propaganda news that you're all seeing on that was given to the Telegraph newspaper. Then also, after that was done, the Haaretz WikiLeaks exclusives Israeli ruled out military options in Iranian years ago. See, they knew that if they created the Stuxnet virus sometime between 2005 and 2006. They created the Stuxnet virus. That they no longer need to go into with a military action to destroy them. They can do it by just simply weeding themselves into a nuclear power plant, causing the nuclear power plant to self-destruct, causing far much more devastating and destructive events that were, that would not have to need or have the need of military option. So, but yet this also becomes damage control, that they not make it look like, oh, they weren't interested in attacking Iran with military, capability. No, so they can dumb down the idea so you don't try to look into this information with a fine tooth and comb. And then also it goes on the Japanese Time newspaper that also admits the same thing, that the Israeli nuclear options in Iran, and this was also printed on January the 15th. Now, here is the beginning of where the plots that were threatened against the Japanese people and how that it pulls the American people into the threat as well. See, America is also involved in being targeted by Israel, but the American government are behind this target. They're behind the plot of targeting their own people as well, because you got to remember they're controlled by Israel. They're ran by Israel. But this is where it begins. Watch carefully. On the Wall Street Journal, it started out, Palestinians weigh in on the United Nations statehood declarations, and this is what they wanted to be. They wanted to be recognized as a one-state country that would be recognized by all the world as a country of its own. But this idea was unacceptable by the Jewish people, which you're fixing to see now. You're fixing to see here in just a second. The United Nations praises the Palestinian people for their statehood, which now has Israeli angry at United Nations and the countries that support, 30 countries, mind you, that support the Palestinian statehood. They now are very highly angry, which you're fixing to see next. Okay? First of all, let me see here. The Prime Minister, before you actually, let me show you here how the Americans also got mad. See, this is where it shows you where the Israelis now mad at America, because now that they now recognize that Americans also support the statehood. Okay? Now, he goes on to, the Prime Minister states that he's heading to the United States under the threat of Palestinian statehood declaration, because he found out that Fayyad and Obama reached a secret understanding for the recognition of Palestine state. See, now they're very furious. They're very angry, okay, at the American people. Now, this is what they're trying to make it look like out in the open. Then, as they get there to the United States, they must have made a great impression to the United States, because they no longer have an agreed peace talks with the Palestinian people. Because they turned around, as you can see here, the U.S. fell, and then they returned. They turned to the United Nations, and you see here that after they visited with the United States, which, let me get this link here to open up. It's refusing to open. Here it goes. The Israeli Today magazine prints out, after they had visited with Obama, they send Hillary Clinton to Israel to have talks with the Prime Minister and also other foreign ministers there inside of Israel, diplomats, and they stated that the United States finally gets it. The Jewish freeze won't bring peace, okay? But the United States sits up there and makes a bargain deal with Netanyahu by saying, if you give 90 days of no building and no structuring of settlements inside of the Palestinian territories for 90 days, we will reward you fighter jets and also unmanned drones. In other words, they're rewarding them for just stopping for 90 days, and then they turn around and state that they will no longer bring this topic or this issue of peace talks back to the Israeli borders again. They will leave the Israeli alone and let them do with what they want to with the Palestinian people. Now you have to figure, what kind of freaking bargain is this? This is no bargain. This is the crime being committed. Watch carefully. As they made this deal, see, now you got to remember the document I showed you, which I'm going to go back here and show you. The American people were already now backstabbing Israel. See, Israel doesn't trust the American people openly, but secretly they're together in plotting to target the United States. Now watch carefully. When I go back to this document here, you go here and you see Fayyad lays first brick for the new United Nations program, joint program funded by Japan and Jericho. See, Japan gives money and has the support of United Nations to rebuild the Jericho city east of Jerusalem, which is in the Palestinian territory, which was a no to the Israeli government. This was a clear, direct attack against the Israelis' agendas, if this is making any sense. Now, when you've seen all these other documents, Israel threatens, which I'm going to show you here. Okay, the Israeli government threatens the United Nations. Let me pull it up here real quick. For any kind of building or any kind of structures being built. Let me open this here. Israel threatens the United Nations and all the 30 countries of unilateral steps, as you can read right here on the title. Unilateral steps is indicating that they're threatening to attack any countries that support the Israeli statehood of declaration. You see there? That is right there in the wide open. Now, remember the Palestinian or the Japanese supported them. They became the first country to actually give money to the Palestinian people to rebuild Jericho city. See, Israel doesn't want to rebuild the city. They want to destroy the entire region and make it a one-state controlled under Israeli Mossad powers dictatorship. And they want to annihilate the Palestinian people out of existence. They don't want Palestine to be recognized as a one-state ideology. Then you see here also angering and adding fuel to the fire against Israel. Japanese people said to Israel, Japan does not recognize Israel's annexation of East Jerusalem. They're pissed. This came out April the 7th, 2011. Okay, you got to remember, this came out after the earthquake. And they now even more denied Israel, and this is the reason why Japan keeps on having more and more earthquakes, because they constantly denied Israel's existence. And they even called them murderers and criminals and illegal acts of building settlements in Palestinian territories that violates the 1967 border treaty that were signed between the two countries. And then it goes on to really add more fuel to the fire. The Japanese people are now supporting other Arab nations in the region around that are enemies to the Israeli government, such as Somalia, blah blah blah, and talking about broadening their horizons with nuclear projects in the Arab nations. And this right here is a no-no. This now has Israeli literally thinking in their heads that we have to do something to stop this country from intervening or interfering. But see, they're not the only country that was doing this. But you're going to see how, because remember I showed you just previously, I showed you that how the Americans were also double-crossing the Israeli people as well. And I showed you the document where they threatened all the countries that supported this statehood. Then you see this. After the threats, they were thinking how they can stop the Japanese people. But see, the American people were also threatening Japan, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit. See here, after you've already seen that they deny even reckon, or shall I say, do not recognize the Japanese people, or the Israeli people, excuse me. They're not recognized by the Japanese people. Okay, this has now went over into overdrive. Israeli now finds a way to get into the country. Israeli firm secures the Japanese nuclear power plant. Remember, they're the ones that created the Stuxnet virus. And they go there and they have access to their security systems in a nuclear power plant. The company, Magna BSP, was the Israeli firm that had access to the nuclear power plant, which you can see in this Haaretz newspaper document. See here? And they go on to admitting that they had access to the security systems, installing security systems and cameras into the facility so that they can film the devastation and destruction of the nuclear power plant. And then they go on to admitting and bragging that they came from the same location where the Stuxnet virus was created out of, in Negev Desert, in a nuclear arms facility in Dimona, just like you read in the New York Times, which you'll see that in the links that I post below this video. And then here, the Israeli recalls diplomat families from Japan, says no connections to the nuclear fears. This came out on March the 14th, which is 3 days after the earthquake attack and the attacks on the nuclear facilities. They came out defending themselves of having any involvements with the nuclear fears and the attacks. Why would they do that? No one was even accusing them yet. We didn't even have all this information until later. You see what I'm getting at? In other words, this became damage control. And then you have this right here. Okay? This is how the Americans started getting involved in threatening Japan. See, oh, sorry about this. This right here is where the Japanese and the Palestinians have had a long relationship, and since 2009, and it gives you all the hyperlinks here that you can see everything they're dealing with Japan and Palestine. Notice that they don't deal with Israel; they deal with Palestine. And this right here was also another adding fuel to the fire. This is more on the subject, and you can read this in much details of how Japan was angry with the Israeli people, and were very angry with their crimes against them and their illegal acts of building settlements inside of Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. Then this is where the This is where the Americans now get involved in threatening Japan. This happened in 2009, the same amount of time that the settlement situation had unfolded with Israel and Japan. This is now where the Americans now threaten Japan for their probes on the 1960s nuclear agreements with the United States. And it goes into details of what they're angry about, that they're exposing secret documents that violates the international laws, and this is what the Americans are trying to shield. Also, they were trying to move out the military bases out of the country, which you're going to see on this next one. See, look here. Gates warns Japan. Listen, that's a very severe warning. You see there? Gates warns Japan not to back out of troop deal. Okay? He warns them because, see, Japan, new prime minister does not want America in the country or on the island of Okinawa. They try to persuade the Americans to move their troops out of the country, out of the island of Okinawa, and move them in a different location, which is what pissed off the American people. And so the American government started threatening warnings against Japan. If they did this, then they would suffer economic mayhem. They would suffer different catastrophic events, and they would hint around the catastrophic events by calling it Mother Nature seems to be the enemy now, quote and unquote, according to Gates, which you will see in this statement. Okay, this is on the Japanese official Ministry of Defense website, and he admits in his article that as a threat in a hypothetical reverse speech that he's now threatening them with Mother Nature. You see what I'm getting at? They're now, and it goes into detail. It quotes it very clearly in the document. Now, then you have this. The Department of Defense admits that they had the meeting in 2009, which you see the date here, but they lie about how the Japan was cooperating with them, because Japan wasn't cooperating with them because they were not agreeing on the timetable of when they would come up with a decision on what they were going to do in plans with the removal or relocation or maintaining the same location altogether. The American government wanted a timetable for all of this. And so now you see that the Japanese did not give them a timetable, because he said he had to discuss this, the Prime Minister of Japan had to discuss this with his constituents, members, and to come up with a plan. But Gates wanted him to come up with a plan before the president in 1 week was going to tour the country. But it shows the threat, the plot, the anger, the high level warnings of economical downfalls, of mayhem, and the warnings of even natural disasters in a hypothetical reverse speech in his press conference to the Japanese news reporters, which I showed you previously. You're going to see all these documents under this video. And again, it goes on to the interview showing that they threatened of the enemy, which is the weather, blah, blah, blah. And you can see this on the U.S. Department of Defense transcript of this interview. So guys, this is all that I have to share with you all on this. This is all that I found. I have not found England or any other countries behind the plot. There's nothing coming out about them threatening the Japanese people. So right now at this point, which I'm going to see if there is any connections to the English government or to any other country that had bilaterally threatened the Japanese people. The only two countries that I've seen and found so far is only the Americans and the Israeli government, who had already plotted for 2 years to annihilate this country. And you can see it all in these documents here. But anyhow, I appreciate your time, guys. Tune in to next time. I'm going to make a video about religion. That's going to be my next sophisticated and controversial subject. And I'm going to show you how religion ties into this, and how that it has 5 billion people religiously believing in a status quo salvation, only to entrap them in their deaths. I'll show you and explain all this to you, and we'll get to that another time. Okay? So, by saying that, I'm going to say farewell. Until next time, you all take care. Please share this information to everybody. And also, come and join me at paltalk.com under Social Issues and Human Rights, and look for the room title, 9/11 Pathway to Armageddon. Okay, this is the room where I'm at all the time, it's a live voice chat. You can come in there and voice all your questions, your opinions, your thoughts. It's all in your hands. But anyhow, by saying that, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time. Thank you.